Joining us now is Florida Congresswoman Paulina. Anna, thanks so much for joining. I have been inundated with feedback from other countries wanting to renegotiate the trade deals with the United States. How do you see President Trump's tariff strategy playing out so far?
Well, as you saw, there was an announcement recently that over 50 countries have come to the table to negotiate. And I think that this has been President Trump's plan all along. You know, the T word tends to make people nervous, but as you're seeing, many of our countries that we are trade with are actually willing to drop those rates. And so I think that it's about the art of the deal, and I think that Trump's winning.
The T word that makes leftists afraid is testosterone. But I want to get back to trade. Congressman Don Bacon, one of our fellow Republicans, says he's going to introduce legislation to limit President Trump's authority to be able to apply these tariffs. Will you be supporting that legislation?
No. I actually applaud the speaker for coming out and saying that he is going to give President Trump the runway that he needs in order to do his job. And I think that right now, a lot of people, obviously hearing from some of these activist groups in their districts, are getting nervous. But what I will tell you is if you're looking what's happening long term and how it's really resetting the American economy long term for the better, I think it'll have generational impacts. I would just tell people to trust the process and that this will all work out. And as you're seeing, again, 50 countries have come to the table to negotiate. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think the last chapter in this book is actually we have a lot more fair trade and a lot more free trade going on in a lot more marketplaces. I also want to ask you about some of the legal wranglings we've seen around the El Salvador deportations. Judge Bosberg is saying that he may hold administration officials in contempt if they don't return gang members from Sakat prison back to the United States. If that happens, do you think that there'll be efforts to go after the judiciary for overstepping their bounds?
Most certainly. Representative Biggs is currently working on a piece of legislation that would actually enable Congress to remove them based on not fulfilling their moral obligations and duties and basically poor behavior. But what I will also tell you, Matt, is that I think that Congress needs to be very aggressive in how we treat these people. Look, if these judges aren't advocating for American citizens, they are advocating for illegals that did very bad things, are violent criminals, and were here not rightfully in the first place. And so what I would tell you is obviously we support what President Trump is, get these people out of our country. Frankly, the fact that we even have to pay to relocate them is a whole nother issue. But I think ultimately what President Trump has done with the border, and then also to what we're seeing right now in reconciliation with ensuring that funds are given to people like the Borders Are Holman in order to ensure that these illegals are basically kept away from the American people. I think that that's the right thing to do.
Let's get to that budget reconciliation discussion. We have seen Speaker Johnson indicate that he wants the House to pass the Senate budget resolution. I know you are usually on the high end of cost cutting when it comes to congressional Republicans, but it seems that bill only cuts about $4 billion. Like the federal government might spend that during this interview. Do you think the Senate budget cuts enough, and are you willing to support it at Speaker Johnson's request?
I think that it could cut more. I was actually in some of those negotiations initially, and initially the number was 4.5, and then it went to 2 on the House side, and obviously the Senate came back with 5 trillion. What I will tell you, though, Matt, is that the White House has been calling and asking members to specifically ensure that we're delivering on President Trump's agenda. And so I think that I want to trust that President Trump knows what he's doing. I'm inclined to vote for it. But what I will also tell you is, look, President Trump did some incredible things during his first term. We just have to give him the runway in order to do that. And I think that that's exactly what we're doing right now. But what I don't understand, Matt, is that some of the same people that are saying they're not going to support this aren't really providing much of a solution. So if you're not going to support it, I understand that. But what is the solution? And so that's what I'm interested in hearing.
Well, it sounds like the solution on spending cuts and on trade is just give President Trump the authority and have Congress get out of the way. And I know you have spent a lot of time trying to change Congress. You are a critic of how Congress operates. I join you in a great deal of that criticism. I think all of it. Yeah. But it sounds like Congress isn't really doing anything on trade or on spending cuts. They're just maintaining the status quo and then telling President Trump he can do what he wants. Maybe I don't object to that. Maybe that's the right thing to do. What do you think?
No, I think from the inside baseball perspective, you've seen how this place operates. What's been kind of alarming to me is, the people that were saying that they like what Doge is doing. We're largely the ones that have been spending us into this deficit. And you were with us many a times when we were saying, no, we can't keep spending. We need to cut this, that, and the other. Then we saw the fights with the USAID. I mean, the fact is that really until President Trump got into office, it was not cool to want to dial back some of the frivolous fraud, waste, and abuse in spending, right? But frankly, the fact that people are now trying to block what President Trump is trying to do, they're buckling under pressure. I mean, the people overwhelmingly, not just the national vote, but also the popular vote, elected President Trump because they wanted change that they were not seeing in Washington, D.C. And as you're seeing right now, I think the base is really upset because Congress has not been delivering on those changes. And so what I would say is right now we need to, A, help deliver with what President Trump has done. We've been in office for 70 days. And not a lot has been moving. In my opinion, there's been a lot of slow rolling on a lot. And I've been, very vocal on it. Sometimes I receive a lot of arrows from our own inside institution because of it. But what I will tell you is, I don't think like people like myself, like you, aren't looking to do this long term. And so I'm here to make change, and I'm going to do exactly what I set out to do.
Last topic I want to cover, the JFK and other investigations you're working on bringing transparency to. Just where do you think we stand right now, and where is the task force that you're leading going next?
Yeah, so we just had an incredible investigation and hearing on JFK. As you saw, not only did we find evidence that the CIA was lying to Congress, but also Oliver Stone testified, obviously, to the NBC film, and then also that he had witnesses that would be willing to tell Congress that they did not see Lee Harvey Oswald actually at the book depository, which is wild because that blows open the whole theory that the Warren Commission put forward that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone shooter. We also saw that the CIA denied the lone gunman theory, and there's so much information that actually begs to question why was the CIA holding back evidence. I think that in itself will explain to the American people why. But moving forward, it's not just the JFK declassification. I mean, even just a few days ago, there were 700 more pages of documents uploaded to the National Archives. We're also working with the National Archives to address stuff on UAPs, and so I'm tracking those documents. But the one thing I've been very frustrated with, Matt, is that I have tried very hard to obtain the Jeffrey Epstein files. I have been contacting the Department of Justice. I've even chased down the FBI, and I keep getting the same thing. We are reviewing documents. I don't believe that the process has been as good as the JFK rollout and the MLK and the RFK rollout will be. And so I'm going to continue to put pressure on the DOJ to release that information. Look, there's bad people that haven't been charged for doing really horrible things with underage people. And frankly,
has the DOJ given you any timeline on that, Anna?
No. In fact, I haven't really gotten any communication from the DOJ. And frankly, Matt, what's also been frustrating is I actually sent inquiry following up with the DOJ on if they're going to prosecute the referrals for those sanctuary city mayors. And they said that they received receipt of our letter but didn't respond.
Congresswoman Paulina Luna of Florida, thank you for staying on the case, and we look forward to getting more updates on your outstanding work.
Thank you.